We are live. Let me just, I don't see this. Hold on, this is being weird for a second. Okay. It looks like everything's working. Let me know if it's not. But we should be live. Everything should be, um, okay. It looks fine. All right. Anyway, we'll get started. So we're just gonna do what we did last week. Yeah, last Friday. Wow, I've been so bad. I don't even think I posted a video in like the past like 5 days. Just about 5 days. I don't know, just like I haven't felt the need to say anything, and that's really like the reason why. But I still wanted to stream today, and today I have some things pulled up that I've written previously. I really need to figure out Substack because I thought I was like putting stuff out, but like if you go on it and if you're like subscribed to like the free version of my Substack, like you still can't see it, so I need to figure that out. Really, I just need to create another account and see what it looks like if somebody's subscribed. I feel like that'll be helpful to me, but I'm just so lazy with this stuff. So bear with me while I figure this kind of stuff out and start to work through these things. But yeah, we'll get into this. This first one is a, I don't know why I couldn't open my window. This first one's like a story, not really a story. It's kind of like a Borges kind of story where it's there's not really a plot to it. There's not really anything. It's just told through format of a story, but there's no beginning, middle, and end. It's that sort of thing. So I don't know. I don't necessarily really want to write like a traditional story. I don't know if I'd find that very interesting. Maybe something like that's like on an epic scale, like Paradise Lost or like Dante or something like that. That would be the closest thing I would ever want to write to like a story per se. I don't know. It just doesn't interest me that much. Awoken by another night terror. It was late in the night, early in the morning. Not early enough to get up, still shaken from the other side. I rose out of bed. I walked to the hallway. Does it say the halfway? The hallway. Dude, it's so bad because I'll reread this like myself and I won't catch any sort of errors. But the minute I start reading it out loud is the minute I start to notice when I spell things wrong. Maybe that's what I have to do. Maybe when I write something, I have to read it out loud. That's actually a pretty good. Wow, I just gave myself that on the fly, but I'm gonna start doing that, so there'll be less and less errors. But oh, it's very frustrating. I walked to the hallway, but something was different. In front of me was a tunnel of light, the colors of which cannot be described. Behind me, there was something stopping me, as if I was in a line with a ticket and could not step out. Something pulled me forward. I began to follow. The lights began to change, vibrating faster and faster, until my eyes began to adjust. In front of me was a path, winding and long, going off into the distance to some unknown destination. By my side appeared a creature, unsure of what it was. However, it had a friendly smile and four legs. I had never been betrayed by an animal so far, so why not reach out? He looked to me, and I knew this was no beast, but a friend. I asked where we were. You already know. Do I? Just a moment ago I was in my bed, now I'm here. There's no difference between here and anywhere you have been. What is this supposed to mean? I don't even know what I'm saying. It's funny because I'm rereading this and like I don't know how to explain this aside from the fact that like when I write, it's not like it doesn't really come from my normal thoughts. Like I feel like I really focus, I really center myself, I really get into a state where I can write. Like if I tried to write right now, I don't think I could. I have to just be in that frame of mind. So I don't even know where I'm going with this. This is exciting. There's no difference between here and anywhere you've been. What is that supposed to mean? Meaning is relative. We exist in paradoxes. I'm beginning to realize there are no answers with you. There are no answers, just experience. All right, I know I'm going with this. I followed my guide's advice and began to walk. The long and winding road was empty. There was not a soul but me and my companion. The greenery was lush, the shade of green in which can only be imagined. Light with the appearance of a glow, almost as if the leaves had their own halos. It would be more breathtaking if I was not so confused. I have lived here my whole life. Not one moment has been wasted. I look to the forest and see hope. My life is one of grace. I'm dead. Are you any more dead than your normal days? How much do you really live each day? How much time is spent in passion? How much time is spent in love? How much time counting your blessings? Dot, 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 dot. I don't know why there's four dots. I sat with that idea. Mm. Was that four or five? I can't see. Yeah, it looks like five. I don't know why I just didn't do three. That's just me nitpicking. I sat with that idea. Most spend entire lifetimes worrying about others. Most cannot get out of their own way. The mind is an immovable object. Once an idea is present, it cannot be moved. It becomes part of you. Man is but a collection of ideas. Far too few of them good. And once we get through the story, I'm gonna pick out little pieces and talk about what I'm trying to say. But for the purpose of this, I'm just gonna read it and because the minute I spoil it, what I'm talking about, I don't know if it takes away from the story, honestly, because it's not really a story. It's kind of like a parable. But so what is this about? Am I here because I am Scrooge? Have I killed Tiny Tim? All men are Scrooge in their own way, for why else would the story resonate so much? And why would the message give so much hope? If was not, oh, I don't like the sentence. If it was not also our redemption captured in that story. If it, okay, there's supposed to be an it there. Wow, I've caught two errors already. I thought to myself that this was the weirdest animal I had met. Not because it could talk, but in but its way in which it spoke. Most people talk and say nothing. Most people have not thought, and thus what they say is not of interest. But this beast spoke as if he was eternal, that he had seen it all, and that he knew the answers. Can you teach me to live? Can you show me how my waking can break the cycle of sleep? This is this is so, this is like so funny because like this line right here is like I would say like 80% of what I focus on when I write. It's like it's like it why do I always come back to this idea? It's so funny. I don't know, I'm just making fun of myself at this point. No, that is not something someone can teach. Life is meant to be experienced. These ideas began to weigh on me. It was if I was snapped out of a trance. I had finally woken from my life of sleep. I was a free man in my mind my whole life. Oh, no. Okay, wait. I read this with the wrong inflection. That's why I stumbled. I was a free man in my mind my whole life. Yet I was tied to the post of tradition, bound by a leash which pulled when I strayed too far from convention. I feel like I stole that from Emerson. The trees began to clear. A vast field was open, a tree in the middle, so large that I was shocked I hadn't seen it earlier. Must have been 1,000 years older, perhaps older, for the world in which I entered had a timeless feeling to it. The light breeze could be heard moving through the leaves of grass. Am I just calling back to Walt Whitman? A humming filled my soul. I feel like I don't even think I read Whitman at this point, but it's just funny that I feel like I kind of stole his thunder there. It was as if the surrounding was part of me, that I could sense the subtle movements of everything. I heard the rush of water in the distance. With each breath, I felt myself more in this world. My guide and I continued till we got to the tree. We sat down. This is where our journey ends, but not all who wander are lost. I stole the Tolkien line. I love this line so much. How has the journey ended? I still have so many questions. I still need to know where I am. I do not wish to leave here. Questions seek answers. Of such none will satisfy. What you are seeking you already have. What is that supposed to mean? In fact, what is the meaning of all things? Paradoxes are meant to provide questions, but paradox can only be penetrated With simple thoughts, the harder the approach, the less meaning will be gained. So what are we supposed to do? Sit here under the tree? Yes. Let's say it differently. Sit under the tree. It clicked, and now I understood. A smile and warmth came over me. Okay. That was a lot better than I remember. I remember writing this and I somewhat liked this, but I think the ending I really outdid myself there. So we'll start going through. We could either just go through all of these, or I could go into more depth. We're just gonna go into more depth because there's a few parts of this that I really want to talk about because I think there's a few significant ideas in this that like are pretty simple on its face, but like very difficult when it comes to practical sort of life. And that's really what I was trying to do in this story. That's really what any story is trying to do, is just trying to capture the universal and break the cycle of whatever it is that you're struggling with. And what I mean by that is there's something about the human mind that can only understand things through stories. It has to do with the oral tradition, has to do with the fact that writing wasn't a thing and we were passed down uh, sets of ideas and philosophies and beliefs and sort of our collective morality from this sort of storytelling culture. And there's just a part of our brain that will never get past that. And there's a part of our brain that, you know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, Emerson and Walt Whitman say the exact same thing, but you read Walt Whitman, maybe that's not a good example because Emerson's very poetic, but you read Walt Whitman and because he's speaking to you with poetry, it's alive, it's vibrant, it has a heart, it has a soul to it. Whereas if you take another one of the transcendentalist philosophers, or again, transcendentalists are a bad idea, but you take someone like I can't even think of anyone that's similar to Walt Whitman, but you take a story that says the same messaging, perhaps a Tolstoy, or I'm giving such bad examples. I'm trying to think of a philosophy or a belief system. Maybe Schopenhauer. I guess Schopenhauer would somewhat agree in some ways, but whatever Schopenhauer has to say, it might not resonate at the same deep level that a Whitman would, or a storyteller would, a C.S. Lewis or a Charles Williams. Like there's just something so important about stories. All right, so all this is just set up. Again, this is sort of like a Alice in Wonderland kind of story where you're going off into another dimension that is ever present but we're not aware of. Just think of a heightened state of awareness. I'm using this example as a tool to get us to these higher sort of ideas of things that, you can go on a walk in your neighborhood. That's what this one's actually about. But you can go on a walk in your neighborhood, and if you really start to pay attention to things, you'll see things that you've never noticed before, but you lived in that neighborhood your whole life. And these little details, they shift and they change the way in which you see the world around you. Like I started going on walks like on a daily basis, I want to say a few years ago, and it was like only up until then that I noticed that like the houses in my neighborhood had a set architecture, had a set design, had a set sort of building structure. And there's no sorts of, I don't think there's any restrictive covenants or any sort of equitable servitude. So there shouldn't be the same thing, but it's a cool little thing that I never took the time to notice. And this is somewhere I've lived my entire life. And it's just like, why don't we pay attention to those things? Why don't we see the world as it really is? Why don't we start to notice the details that might not be important but are ever present, and it's when we can start to notice more details and notice more about the world around us, when we can start to expand who it is that we are. All right, again, this is just the motif or the archetype of the spiritual guide in my sort of story. I just chose a beast. I wasn't too descriptive, but I kept it pretty vague, but we all kind of know what I'm pointing to. Think of C.S. Lewis, think of the Chronicles of Narnia with, is it Aslan? The lion that symbolizes Christ in that. I really need to reread the Chronicles of Narnia. That's been on my, I don't really have a to be read list, but that would be one of them if it was because I'm really enjoying the space trilogy as I go through it. I'm gonna finish the trilogy very soon. I'm on the third book, and I'm gonna pick that up probably within the next few weeks. But I'll start breaking down these questions. I asked where we were. You already know. And again, it's very clear where we are. We're in my own mind. And I'm really just using the sort of idea that the world around you is your perception. The world around you is what you create and what you make it out to be. And do I just a moment ago I was in my bed, now I'm here. There's no difference between here and anywhere you have been. Again, this idea that I'm in my own head, this idea that I'm in my own mind. Meaning is relative. We exist in paradoxes. I think this is pretty evident. Like we can make sweeping generalizations and they might be correct in 99.9% of instances, or it might be right in 100% of instances, but we don't really understand the exact depth of what it is that we're speaking to. It's not possible to be 100% certain about anything, and that's sort of this idea. If you notice any sort of writing I do, there's always this idea of paradox. And I think this is something that's lost on us nowadays, that like paradoxes are basically infinite sources of wisdom because you can think about a paradox for your entire life and constantly gain new information from it. And I don't really think that we have this in a lot of stuff that we consume in a lot of our everyday lives. And there's something very important about introspection. There's something very important about contemplating and really looking at yourself and really looking at the life that you're living and the decisions that you're making and the person that you're becoming and being aware of those things. And I think just understanding paradoxes and understanding and being introspective is such a fundamental aspect that I think we're pushed away from because we're told not to really have our own set of beliefs. We're told not to guide yourself. We're told that it's not okay to be wrong. Like there's all of this fear that we have kind of built up in our own heads about if I'm wrong, people are going to hate me. But you need to be wrong a set amount of times before you can be right. You need to make the wrong decision before you learn why it's the wrong decision most of the times. And I'm not talking about with huge things, but with little things like how many times did your parents tell you you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do this? And it was only when you made the mistake and you saw the repercussions that you understood that they were trying to tell you something that you were never going to be able to understand until you went through it. That's what I'm trying to speak to. I'm beginning to realize that there are no answers with you. There are no answers, just experience. Again, this idea that there's something beyond understanding. There's something beyond what we could ever hope to perceive. I followed my guide's advice and began to walk. The long and winding road was empty. There was not a soul but me and my companion. The greenery was lush. Again, just describing this sort of archetypal, sort of mythic, sort of divine or heavenly sort of aroma of this place. I've lived here my whole life. Not one moment has been wasted. I look to the forest and see hope. My life is one of grace. All he's saying here is that he doesn't think. He doesn't do anything except live. And we have gotten so far away from actual life that we don't even know what life is. Are you able to be in a room bored? Are you able to be unoccupied by anything? Or when you're doing the dishes or when you're doing the laundry, do you have to have a video playing? I say that because I'm guilty of that myself. And it's like the more capable we are being bored, the more capable we are of living. It's when you need to do something. It's when you need to justify what you're doing. It's when you need to be productive in your own head. Like think about when you're at work and you have no work to do, and instead of just sitting there idly, you pretend like you're busy. You go check your email. You find busy work to do busy work. And that's really a waste of your time and energy because think like there's going to be a big task. Something is going to come down the pipe. Something's going to be very important. But because you spread yourself so thin on all of these nonsensical sort of chores, you wasted all your time and energy, and You could have been relaxing, you could have been recharging, you could have taken a break, you could have went outside and went on a walk. Like there's these little things in our lives, these little moments that we could really use to take advantage, to reset, to bring ourselves closer to who we are. But instead of doing that, we do things that don't really make sense. I am dead. Are you more dead than your normal days? How much do you really live each day? How much time is spent in passion? How much time spent in love? How much time counting your blessings? And again, and I sat with this idea. And what I'm really trying to emphasize here is most of our lives we spend stressing. Most of our lives we spend worrying about things that don't really matter. I would say like I'm just throwing this number out there. I'm really just pulling this number from thin air, but like 80 to 90% of our problems aren't problems. 80 to 90% of the things we worry about aren't going to happen. Our mind is kind of like addicted to anxiety because think anxiety is a good thing. Biologically, why do we have anxiety? It's because when we're hunting something, when we're on the lookout for stuff, it's good to be heightened awareness. It's good to be paranoid because when you're paranoid, you're going to take the proper precautions on a, a branch breaking or leaves rustling. It's going to make you aware and it's going to allow you to protect yourself. But we don't live in that fight or flight state anymore. So those mechanisms are finding their sort of way into our everyday lives, and our everyday lives don't really take this level of seriousness. They really don't take this level of fear, this level of anxiety is completely unnecessary. I mean, unless you're a soldier, unless you're doing real hard labor that's very dangerous, I don't think many of us have really anything to be stressed out about. And the more we could start to understand this idea and start to spend our time on better things, the more our lives will just be reflected in such a way. And I want you to understand is like, do you like your life right now? Do you like your characteristics? Do you like everything that happens on a daily basis? And if the answer is no, then I want you to start observing your thoughts and start looking what they go to. Do they go to negativity? Do they go to things that really aren't important? Are you worried about what other people think about you? Are you worried about things that you can't really control? Well, if that's the case, then you could put things right. You could make things better. You could think about the good times. You could tell the people in your life that you love them. You could spend 5 minutes just relaxing. You could spend 5 minutes just getting away from things. You could take a break from your work and go on a walk and put everything down that you're doing and then come back refreshed. It's like it only takes a little bit of effort, but it's breaking ourselves out of that cycle that's so hard. Most spend entire lifetimes worrying about others. Most can't get out of their own way. The mind is an immovable object. Once an idea is present, it cannot be moved. It becomes part of you. Man is but a collection of ideas, far too few of them good. And again, you're going to be consumed by what you think about. What you think about, who you become, is going to be derivative of your actions, and your actions are derivative of your thoughts. Your experiences are literally shaped by your thoughts, which then go to shape your personality. So if you're not thinking good things, then I'll tell you what, your life's just going to actively be worse. The more of an optimist you can become, the better your life will be. It's just a simple reality, and it's so important to reiterate. And really, what I'm trying to say is that any moment I'm sad, I remind myself how good my life is. And I don't like to do comparisons, but like if you really can't find anything good about your life, just understand that there's people in this world that will die to be in your position. That your life is so much better than theirs that they would willingly die to trade places with you. And it really puts things in perspective. But again, I don't really think you should do that all that much. I don't really think comparisons are healthy to do because the minute you start comparing yourself to someone lesser than you will immediately also see someone who is better than you. And all comparisons are the thief of joy, as Teddy Roosevelt said. So, what is this about? Am I here because I am Scrooge? Have I killed Tiny Tim? And this is really just speaking to the reason why all of the stories that we hear are so eminent and we all enjoy them so much is because there's a part of us in them. There's a part of us in the Odyssey. There's a part of us in Dante. There's a part of us in A Christmas Carol. And they sort of play on these universal archetypes that speak to an aspect of all of us. And that's why that story is so uplifting. That's why that story is so inspiring. It's because you could have been a horrible person your whole life, but it's never too late to change. It's never too late to set your life in the right direction. That's why that story is so beautiful, and it really embodies what we believe Christmas to be about, because it's that redemptive power. It's that idea that this man is a Scrooge. He's he's a despicable character. He's destroyed the lives of everybody that's met him, but he is able to set it right, and he's able to hopefully make up for all the wrongs that he did. I thought to myself, this was the weirdest animal I had met. Not just because it could talk, but it's why did I ever add that line? Not just because it could talk, but its way in which it spoke. Many people talk and say nothing. Most people have not thought, and thus what they say is not of interest, because he spoke as if he were eternal, that he had seen it all, and that he knew the answers. Okay. So what's important about this paragraph is right here. Most people talk and say nothing. Most people have not thought, and thus what they say is not of interest. And what I'm describing here is the idea that, you know, are your thoughts your own, or are they the creation of others? And what I mean by this is that we're implicitly guided by others around us. So if we've never stood up for ourselves, if we've never taken the initiative to be alone, to be an individual, to be away from the pack, then we have nothing of value to say, because we're just as good as everyone else. Our opinion is the same as everyone else's, so why do I need to hear it? And what I'm describing is like, I feel like we're all like this in certain subjects. Like you could talk to me about certain things and I'm not going to really say anything that hasn't been said before. But it's understanding this mechanicalness. It's understanding this sort of, what's the word? Lack of passion or lack of sincerity that, people just repeat slogans to you. That's what I'm speaking about. You have the easiest to see this is political parties. Think of whatever political party and how they have a slogan and how that it really embodies most of that person's beliefs. And they've never even done the bare minimum of research or never even thought like maybe this is good in some regards, but I don't agree with the party on this, or I don't agree with the party on this. Like think of how many people right now are being like, "Oh, I don't like this, but the midterms." And it's like you're the exact reason why things are so bad, because you're just a cow. You're cattle. You didn't think at all. You're just gonna blindly follow, and because you're blindly following, the wool is pulled over your eyes. Can you teach me to live? Can you show me how my waking can break the cycle of sleep? No, that is not something someone can teach. Life is meant to be experienced. And again, it's reiterating this idea of experience, this idea of life, this idea of what is living. And what I'm trying to speak to is this idea that life shouldn't be conscious. And I know this sounds like very contradictory, but like conscious in the sense of like, I'm doing this for this. Like we're so obsessed about the results that we made life into a game. We're like, I'm streaming because I like it. I'm streaming because it's fun to talk about my writing. It's fun to talk about my ideas. It's fun to talk about my worldview, my philosophy of things, even though I don't like philosophy. But because this stuff's fun to me, I'm going to do it. Because I feel like this develops me in some kind of way. Because I feel like this fills me in some kind of way. I'm going to keep doing it. Sure, there could be some sort of external reward, but that's not my main concern. But if I went about it concerning myself with the external results, then even if I succeeded, and my main focus was the external results, that would be a shallow and empty achievement. But if I do it my way and if I succeed my way, then that's worth more than anything else I could ever experience. I'm like starting to lose my voice already. This is not good. I barely even spoke today. I guess I got to get back into streaming more. You know what, I could make more tea. I'll finish this tea and make more of it, and then maybe that'll help. But I feel like I got to get back into the habit of it because it's like it's definitely a muscle. I mean, I guess your lungs are a muscle, but what's up, Zachariah? Very true to what part? I need to stall a bit. Where were we? This is where our journey ends, but not all who wander are lost. And at this point, we've gotten to the tree. We're sitting down. And what does not all who wander are lost mean? Again, I stole this from Tolkien. This is from The Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah, that's the first one. And what I'm trying to say is that, wow, this was my actual point I just made 5 seconds ago. But like, you need to make a certain amount of mistakes. You need to be wrong a certain amount of times. You need to wander and you need to fail and you need to meander your way through life before you even know what you want to do. You know, even if you know what it is that you want, if you get it right away, it's going to be hollow. It's going to be empty. You know, when you do things for the reward, when you do things for the results, then you're missing the point of it. Schopenhauer, uh, he's not often credited with very many ideas, but this is one of his better ones. And it's something along the lines of people that write for the sake of money, their writing will be gone in, 15 or 20 years. No one will remember it. But people that write to say something, people that really have something to say and write because of that, because there's some sort of drive to it, their writing will last forever. And it's the same thing with anything you do. It's the same thing with your life. If you live a good life, then think of how many people around you you're going to impact. You know, there's a lot of people that in their local community are absolute heroes just because they live their lives in a certain way. There's people that are, heroes to their family members just simply for the character they live through day in and day out by the attributes they represented to the people that were closest to them. And it's just I think that's worth more than anything else. I think the way in which you live your life is more of a reward, more of a sort of badge of honor than anything this world could give you. Like my grandma, she's pretty old now, and she said something to me that like really struck me. And she's like, I don't want anyone to be sad at my funeral. She was saying she lived a good life. And to me, I thought that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Because it's like she did it all. She has no regrets. She has no qualms about anything. You know, she experienced it all. It's she's good with it. And it's like how many people do you think can say that? I don't think very many. And it was really like one of the most touching things I've ever heard. And if I was a more sentimental person, well, I am sentimental, but if I was a more sensitive person, perhaps I would have cried. That's such a beautiful sentiment. You're entitled to your actions, not the fruit of your actions. Oh, that's a really good quote. Yeah, I mean that would make sense if it's in the Gita. That sounds like a wow. You're entitled to your actions, not the fruit of your actions. That's such a good quote. Wow, I love that. See, that explained like the last like 20 minutes with zero explanation. I feel like I'll say something and somebody will summarize it in one sentence, and then I feel like my last 20 minutes of my life of me trying to explain something just means nothing because they said it so simply. How has the journey ended? I still have so many questions. I still need to know where I am. I do not wish to leave here. Questions seek answers, of such none will satisfy. What you seek, you already have. Again, it's like trying to it's like trying to ask what the point of life is. If you're asking what the point of life is, then you missed the point already. Okay? I hate to break it to you. Like there's not really a good answer, there's just an experience. There's a fulfillment. There's Kierkegaard's leap of faith. That's the best way I can describe it. And if what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you, then you need to do more soul searching. That's all that means. Okay. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It just is. What is that supposed to mean? In fact, what is the meaning of all things? Paradoxes are meant to provide questions, but a paradox can only be penetrated with simple thoughts. The harder the approach, the less meaning will be gained. And this is something, it's like going against the current. You'll never win. You can resist, you can resist, you can resist, but eventually you'll be overtaken. And that's paradoxes. A really good paradox is no answer because it's meant to evoke something more than an answer. It's meant to stimulate thought. It's meant to force you to look at yourself. It's meant to make you look in the mirror and see your soul at the depth that you are required to see your soul at. And the perhaps the most famous paradox is well, I don't even know if is this even a paradox? Was you can never step in the same river twice. I have no idea if that's actually considered a paradox, but I oftentimes cite that. But the idea of that is that everything is changing. The idea of that statement is that everything is in flux and that the moment that we're clinging on to has already passed and that it can never return. And there's this necessary flux in life to make life happen. There's this heat transfer, there's this entropy that in some way is the cause of all things. So, what are we supposed to do here? So, that was not even all what I highlighted. So, what are we supposed to do? Sit here under the tree. Yes, but say it differently. Sit under the tree. I'm not explaining this one, but if it makes sense, it makes sense. It clicked, and now I understood. A smile and a warmth came over me. I'm not going to explain it, but go back to this if you don't get it. This is a if you don't understand this right here, you're not going to understand yourself. There's a key that this phrase unlocks that a lot of things will start to click after this starts to hit. And the more you can return to this idea, the more you're going to enjoy your life. But that one's for you to find out. Okay, what is this? Knowing. This is more of an essay. This is another somewhat story. All right, we'll read this because it's really short. How long have we been going for? Only 40 minutes and my voice is going already. That's not good sign. My brain was scrambled. I could barely think. I was looking at my computer trying to focus. However, I could not. The difficult balance of attention. The harder you try, the worse it is. The less you try, the easier. And if you don't know, this is the basic idea of meditation. And I think meditation is a real analogy to a lot of life, is that if you can calm down your mind and focus on one thing, then you could devote yourself fully to one thing. So whether it's meditation, whether it's writing, whether it's some sort of athletic event, think of the worst you've ever done in something. So like I've gone to jujitsu tournaments and like I'm way better in the gym than I am on the tournament mats. And it's because when I'm on the mats, I'm not doing jujitsu. I'm worried about the people watching. In the back of my head, I'm like, what if this person breaks my arm? What if this person does this? I'm like building up the pressure in my head, and I'm thinking about the pressure instead of what I'm doing. And because of that, I can't devote myself fully to this idea. I can't devote myself fully to what I'm trying to do. And that's really the trap that most of us fall for. That's why we really fall short. We never give our best because we let the circumstances dictate us instead of us dictate the circumstances. Yet, how can we focus when unable? It's like walking on a beam on the floor versus on top of two ladders. And what I want you to really imagine is, you know, there's a beam on the floor. Super easy to walk on. There's a beam, two 10 feet ladders. They're the ones that go out like this with the little ramp at the top. There's a beam on top of that. It's completely sturdy, but now walk across. And how much harder is that? And that's what we're doing when we're stressing ourselves out, when we're making ourselves anxious, when we're not focused on what's really in front of us, but we're building up the height of what we're doing. And notice I'm using a ladder because of the height. It's a very easy analogy, but the mind is a desert or a forest. Again, your mind could either be empty or it could be full. The more full your mind is, the more things that are pulling your attention, and the less you could give your attention to things that really matter. Finding that nothing can be done, I decided to go on a walk. It was cold. There was not another soul outside. Yet a warmth soon came over me. I don't remember if this was something I wrote. No, I didn't write this while I was walking, but I was drawing from the experience of the day. If you go back and check the weather this day, I'm assuming it was probably cold. The neighbor in which I knew was now foreign. I began to notice the trees. It's the neighborhood. Oh my God. Every time I read something, I find an error. I began to see the architecture. Details which had been apparent my whole life now stood out. It was as if a whole new world was opened. I began to think what this could be. Why had my whole life stopped me from seeing such things? I continued to walk with this idea in my head, as Nietzsche said that all great ideas came from walking. There is a humble genius in this quote from a man who was far from humble. Nietzsche's so funny because he's just like he reminds me of Cicero. I know he hated Cicero, but like he reminds me of Cicero who's just like he knows he's smart, but he knows he can say he's smart and not be humble because he's just smarter than everyone else around him. It's just like the worst kind of intelligent person. Akin to the Taoists in a sense, that the experience is the goal, the only existence which is not forced is the right one, that in this path there is peace, almost disapproving his idea that God is dead, that he very much that he is very much alive in us. Of course, he would argue on the context, but this is my story. Irony aside, let's continue. Why am I arguing with Nietzsche in my story? I see. I remember the story up. I didn't remember this part at all. Like, what was the point of that? With each step, with each breath, I began to lose myself. More and more, I started to feel a connection to the trees, the houses, the wind. It was as if I had designed it all myself. The greatest aspect of all this was that, in a way, it was the first real breath I ever took. The first time I beheld the world as it is. Maybe the last. Whatever the future held, it did not matter. If but I only had this one moment, all of it was worth it. Okay. Very weird story. I don't remember that ending. Why are my endings like so, I don't know, they're not like, I guess you'd say poetic or just so open-ended. Man, I must have been going through something at this time. Whatever this period, because I wrote this story. Yeah, I wrote this story the same, or I uploaded it the same day, but I think I wrote them within the same time frame. Must have been going through it. All right, we'll go back to the finer details. Finding that nothing could be done, I decided to go to walk. There was not another soul outside, yet a warmth soon came over me. The neighborhood in which I knew was now foreign. I began to notice the trees. I began to see the architecture, details which had been apparent my whole life now stood out. Okay. And what I'm speaking to is just actually looking. Actually, I hate to say it because it's so overused, but like touching grass, like going out into nature and just experiencing it. Not doing something for doing something. Just simply being observant, just simply being aware, allowing my mind to relax, allowing things to relax and just look out and appreciate things. I don't know how to explain this experience, so that's why I wrote this story. But if you've at all tried this, it'll make complete sense. It was as if a whole new world was opened. I began to think what this could be, why my whole life had stopped me from seeing such things. And the answer is because I never took the time. I never sat with myself. I didn't allow myself to be bored. I didn't allow myself to simply think, simply wait, simply just be there. I was always, I did this, now I have to do this. Or, oh, I'm doing this, I got to turn on TV. Or, I got to do this, I got to do this. Like, there's this need to be busy that has really just destroyed an entire aspect of ourselves. And really, we're separated from greatness by our ability to be bored. And what I mean by this is our higher faculties, and what I'm talking about is our attention, our focus, our drive, our creativity are locked behind our awareness, are locked behind our ability to stay focused on one thing for a set amount of time without dissipating our awareness. And if we could but just spend a single day completely on one problem, whatever it is in front of you could just be destroyed. It could be just removed from your life. And I truly think that each and every one of us have this capability, but it's that we don't cultivate these aspects of ourselves. We don't cultivate our minds, and thus our minds atrophy. Think your mind is a muscle. Your mind is something that grows and gets stronger or it decays. You know, can you do math the same way you used to do in high school? Hell no, I can't. I was so good at math in high school. Now I'm like, I was trying to help my friend with like very basic physics, and it was just like it was just Calc 1 stuff. And I was like, oh, it's just this, it's just this. I forgot like such basic things, and it was kind of like frustrating. The scary part is I was still better than him at Calc. Thank God he dropped the class, but there's something that is so fundamental that we're all missing out on, and it's because we don't take the time. And this is what Nietzsche's talking about in that quote where he says, all good ideas come from walking. It's getting yourself away from the need to be with the hustle bustle, getting yourself away from the need to keep up with the Joneses, the need to always be busy, the need to always be doing something. And it's in that gap of sort of drive, it's in that gap and sort of what we think our purpose is or what we think is important. It's in that we find what we're looking for. Akin to the Taoist in a sense, that experience is the goal. Again, it's living life for the first time in our lives. That's really what this whole story is about. This whole story is about getting away from the things that I thought were important, getting away from the things that I thought were necessary for life, and finding out that there was a whole other experience that was just right in front of me, but I couldn't grasp it until I went on this walk. And this is somewhat autobiographical, if you couldn't tell. Maybe some of the way I frame it and I use some creative license, but like I really do attribute a lot of my growth to just simply putting my headphones in and going on a walk around my neighborhood for 2 hours. And in those few hours, it just I was away from things. I was contemplating things. I was being introspective. I was humbling myself. I was learning. I was growing. I was doing all these things, and it seemed like I would leave my house and come back a new person. And I don't know how to explain this aside from these contemplative walks are what made me. Emerson has this great quote. It's like I don't remember the books that I've read, but they have made me. I think I would say the same about these sort of experiences. With each step, with each breath, I began to lose myself. More and more, I started to feel a connection to the trees, the houses, the wind. It was as if I had designed it all myself. And I'm just speaking here to that idea that your world is what you make of it. I, I, I use sort of creative or poetic license here, but again, I'm speaking the world is a reflection of you. That's all I'm saying here. The greatest aspect of this, hold on, there's like helicopters still shaking my house, like big ass helicopters. With each step, with each breath, I began to lose myself more and more. I started to feel a connection to the trees. That I just read that. The greatest aspect of this all was that, in a way, it was the first real breath I ever took, the first time I beheld the world as it is, maybe the last. Whatever the future held, whatever the future held, it did not matter. I keep finding all these errors. It's so frustrating. If, but I only had this one moment, all of it was worth it. And what I'm really just saying here is that there's this little chink in the armor, this little gap in the experience we call life, and I finally figured out what it was for. And again, it's a very similar story to this. It's two different approaches, but it's a very similar outcome. See how far we are, because I feel like I can keep going, but I'm also like starting to lose my voice, and like I don't know how long these are gonna take me. Let's find the shorter one. I think it's this one. Knowing. Okay. Is there a real world, or are we forced to see through a small prism which distorts reality? These are the questions with no good answers. Again, William Blake's idea of, if the doors of perception were cleansed, man would see the world as it is, infinite. I just reworked his phrasing. I hate, like, I always try to give credit to the where I find these ideas from. Some of these ideas like aren't necessarily inspired by the things I've read. They're things that I perceive, but whenever I can sort of give a nod to someone that I really appreciate, I always do. So if you find something that in my writing that sounds like I copied it or sounds like I was inspired by someone, it's there. I'm sure I probably talk about Blake in this as well. We live in an age where questions have to be answered. This is easy for trivial matters. What temperature is it, or what did you eat for breakfast? Certain questions we can understand, yet most slip from our grasp. We are in the age of certainty, however. How funny, for as humans we know less than the masters of old. Again, think of Plato, think of Aristotle, think of Socrates. Like uh, most of what we think we know, these people predicted. Homer, Virgil, Dante, Shakespeare. Are we really more intelligent than any of these people, or are these people more impressive than we could ever even understand? No longer do beings exist who can look beyond themselves. To expand your perspective is to expand your consciousness. Yet we are urged to stay in our own lane, to not ponder uncertainty, to not give our perspective. Instead, we are fed the perspective of experts, or rather, who have the deepest pockets to influence those experts. Again, it's a very simple argument. So, thus, we must ask questions, and so goes the loop. What is knowledge? What is truth? What is the point of questions? I'm not here to clarify any of these. So glad I made this statement. So I don't remember what I wrote. Like, when I write something, I don't remember it because it's just a thought to me. Like, I don't want to say this is stream of consciousness because it has a little more structure to that. But the way I write is not, there's no plan to it. It just comes. In fact, I do not believe it is possible. Do not worry, I've not wasted your time. I lay this out to say something more significant. Knowledge and truth are not things which can be thought. In fact, thinking as we know it is not such. What I just said may be counter to all common accepted beliefs. Well, good, that is a start. For I do not wish for conformity, I wish to be myself. I wish to reject all that is popular, for only through my own course can I live the life in which will bring contentment. Again, it's the same theme of the last two. Knowledge is commonly cited as a recitation of facts. I got an A on this exam because I studied very hard. Nice, but this is just one form of knowledge. It is also the lowest level. It does not penetrate to the truth of things. It is mere distraction in the pursuit of truth. Notice how I combined the two. What what am I trying to say? There's some typo here that I can't get over. To the truth of things, and a mere distraction in the pursuit of truth. Notice how I combine the two. They are on the. Oh my God. All right, I have no idea what I'm trying to say here. I'll fix that. The, wow. I don't even like. Oh, I really need to like. I just need to read these things out loud because I feel like that's really the biggest hindrance in my proofreading. The deep knowledge in which I speak is that which cannot be described. It is only in a master who has devoted his whole life to his craft, which we can see it. In other words, it is not the student who memorizes, but the master who knows his trade so well, which he can close his eyes and carry out his task. Most people stop at memorization. This is why so few people progress beyond the primal stages of human development. Their life is about this world, not of the unseen, not of the soul which reverberates through all things. You will find these people on the streets arguing and bickering over things in which they cannot control. Imagine arguing about sports for all your life. That is what most of those that that is what most will be stuck at. If you immediately had a reaction to that, then don't worry, you're a part of this group and I won't grasp what I'm saying. Why am I being so mean? I think this is more so a joke. I definitely wrote that as a joke, like not to be mean, but like to throw it in that like you're already past this stage. Like if you're reading this, you're past that stage. Like if you're reading this, you know that there's something more. If you found me, you know that there's something more. It's kind of just me being a petty asshole. To penetrate knowledge, we must delve into the heart. We must learn to listen to our intuition. At first, it will seem impossible. Do not worry, the world has spent your whole life trying to destroy the sensation. It will be a faint hum at first, but the more you trust yourself, the more oh my God, all these fucking typos are pissing me off. The more it resonates with a strong chord. I can give you steps to get there, but the truth is scary. I cannot help you. I cannot guide you. It is a personal journey. It is one in which you must find the leap of faith. Okay. Again, Kierkegaard's leap of faith. Um, okay. So the whole point of what I'm saying here is that what you're looking for and the truth that you're seeking is not a material one. In fact, that there's all sorts of contradictions. There's a study that says this. There's a study that says this. There's a way of life that says this is the best way, or a way of life that says this is the best way. But what you're looking for is yourself. What you're looking for is to find yourself, is to find what drives you, is to find your passion, is to find what it is that you can get out of bed on a daily basis and be inspired to go do. Really, really, really enjoy that sort of I'm waking up and there's something beyond what I'm doing. There's something beyond the material. And it doesn't have to be like your passion is your job. It could just be like I get to go to work and I get to provide for my family. Like it could just be something like that. But it's about finding what it is for you and it's about finding that sort of hope, faith, I guess you could sort of say in your own life. But with that said, I'm going to end it here. I think I'm going to stream again. I don't know when. Um, Probably at some point this weekend, I want to say. Um, just to get back consistent. But yeah, I'm like losing my voice, so I'm gonna end it here and hopefully you see more of me soon. That said, love you guys. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.